So, my name is Robert O'Connor, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you today. Talk to you about my comeback after 5 years not making music. You found me as my new single, and it's just the beginning of what I've got to roll out this year.
Awesome. I actually like that. I will play when I edit the video. I will play your music in the background, like my other
Nice.
interviews, and I'll label it as such. So, in researching you, you've got some modeling you did. Yeah, you were recognized for modeling. What else did you do? You took a hiatus. You had some remixes done. I think you kind of danced around with electronic dance and then country. And so tell me about that journey, because you have an interesting journey. Leaving school, before you graduated, I guess, and you've been successful. Yeah. So go ahead. Let's get into that.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're to look at the last 5 years, I suppose, before that, I had released a remix EP, and the year before that again, I had released an EP independently, and that was actually meant as a product for me to shop around to labels, to some major labels and to some indie labels as well. But the way the project ended up going, it was a strange time in the market back then. Streaming hadn't happened yet, so we were kind of living in the iTunes age, and CDs were still kind of a bigger thing than they are now, but they still weren't big enough to actually be making money from them as an indie artist. It was kind of a case of that you were spending more to actually produce. Mm-hmm. So if I was to look at my budget now in what it would cost me to put out an EP or a single and what it would cost 5 years ago, there's a massive difference.
Oh, yeah.
In a positive way now. So it's a really positive thing because, I suppose for me, because I have a media background as well, and I've worked in journalism and social media and public relations, I can use that to my advantage and actually do that for me and almost create a business model with those tools.
Sure.
Actually, I suppose that wasn't necessarily the intention all along. I was trying to, for a while, get off the music path and go off and do more of the media stuff. And I did do that for numerous websites and publications over the last 5 years, I guess. It's just gone in so quickly. And then one of the projects was coming to an end last year, but I actually didn't realize it at the time. I finished my last kind of journalism gig last December, but it was last August that I had decided that I was going to make this musical comeback. Mm-hmm. So actually in Vegas at the time, and it was, I think I'd had quite a few years of working solid on lots of different projects, none of them being music, and it was only when I stopped and took a holiday that I realized it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing ultimately. And
sure.
I knew that the industry had changed to the point where it was going to be possible for me to do this again. So I thought, right, I need to think about how I'm going to actually approach this, who I'm going to work with, and I really kind of lost the vast majority of my contacts because things move so quickly, and production teams break up and go their own way, and so I went into meetings with producers here in Ireland, and I wasn't really clicking with anyone. I wasn't finding the right man for the job, and so I reached out to this guy called Steve Hogan, who actually produced my first, he produced my first, second single and a couple of tracks on my debut album, which would have been a decade ago this year actually, which is crazy, but I got in touch with him, and he said he wasn't actually producing anymore in his own studio. Mm-hmm. He'd had like 3 kids since then, and he had this home studio, so his home studio had turned into a bedroom essentially. So he said he knew the man that he thought was the man for the job, and so that's how I met Stuart Gray, who I'd never actually heard of Stuart, even though he's worked with Ryan Sheridan and his studio, he's worked with Hosier and a lot of big names actually that have come out of Ireland and have done well internationally. But it wasn't so much about that. When I went actually to meet Stuart, we had a really informal sit down and a talk about. What was interesting is we talked about what I really didn't want to do and what I hated and what I did want to do. And there were a lot of things coming out of certain production producers in Ireland that I thought were becoming a lot more plastic and less authentic. And derivative kind of just not. It wasn't what I wanted to go out there, but especially after so long, I thought I'm 30 plus now. I want to make something that really sounds like a grown up pop record with all of my influences thrown in there. And so that's what we did. And he was on board from day one to let me kind of take the wheel with the ideas, and to let him, I'm not a producer. I don't have the technical skill for it, but I definitely produce in an offhand way, in the sense that I will be there for a lot of the mixing, and I will be there for a lot of the decisions that are made. I want it to be my record and not, to hear it a few weeks later and say, I don't know why that guitar is in there, or what's that electronic sound, or I want it to be through and through.
Well, I'm trying to remember the song that I think it was. I Had This Thing, if that is the song, right. And then there was Older. I really like that song.
You're the second person actually to have mentioned Older in an interview just this week, so that's really interesting.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. My taste in music, it is very eclectic. I like everything, and your vocals. Now, the other music, like Too Late, I listen to all the remixes,
right.
and those are good. Those are good, but I think that the song Older, that's all you. That's genuinely you, and I can tell with the vocal, you're very comfortable singing that song. And I personally can tell from that song to You Found Me to even the one that you sent me that I play, and I wish you would send me Older, by the way, so I can.
I will send you up, absolutely.
And so let me find Older. Now this is for the audience.
This town is too small for both of us. Lately I can't walk around to find your face here, there, and everywhere.
I mean, really? That's gorgeous, man. That is like excellent. And it kind of starts off like a Morrissey. You know who Morrissey is?
Yes, I do. And you know what's interesting is that wasn't the plan going in, but as time went by, while I was with the two guys who produced the Resistance record, which Older came from, we started to get more and more inspired by the 90s. Everything from Morrissey to Manic Street Preachers, to that really sort of, it's not directly English influence, but I suppose it's a hybrid of like a British indie pop mixed with a sort of Californian breeziness, and
it's a cocktail.
Kind of, yeah, it is, and it's for me. It was about that kind of a lightness about the music, and the final ingredient I think was, and this is going to sound a bit random, but Motown, because of the shortness of the songs and how, the simplicity. For me, I wanted the 4 songs on that EP to have a key sort of simplicity that would make you want to go back and listen again, and that was relatable to any age group or to any type of person, and that the lyrics almost, my lyrics are always quite simple and they're always quite on the pop side of things. But I think particularly on Older, it was a follow-up track. Like I had another track called Over, which they're kind of a twin set in a sense. So they're about the same thing. Older is about a relationship, 4 years after Over.
Uh-huh.
So they were written maybe 3-4 years apart. So I guess the storyline is linking the two together. But you're absolutely right about the Morrissey thing.
I totally hear. I loved Morrissey, and I'm obviously I'm a little older than you, and so I am a big fan of the alternative and the electronic music that came out of Europe. It was a just like the people during the Motown era say, "Oh, that was the best time of music." Well, I think that the electronic era, Pet Shop Boys, Tears for Fears, all those guys, Aha, they all crafted this sound, and it evokes, just like music, it evokes all types of emotions. But that time was special. That it was very special. It was more or less an enlightening moment, kind of like a renaissance in music, if you will. And I wish I could stay in that moment, but this music that everyone sends me, it takes me back there, and I enjoy it. That's why I do this. But no, this song Older's excellent, and if you could send it to me, I will definitely put that in rotation.
Thank you. I'll see you tonight.
So, and this is off subject, but I like to ask. I'm trying to change up the format of questioning, but like, what are your hobbies outside of music, for example? And speaking of remixes, there is an artist out of Amsterdam, a DJ called Who Is Jody, and he snowboard. He was a snowboarder, a professional snowboarder. He injured himself and he became a DJ. He just signed a big label like maybe 2 months ago, and he's doing very well. So what hobbies or things what outside of music do you enjoy that keep you focused? Because sometimes you have to, like, for example, you work hard, you play hard, right? So what do you do to play hard?
So, I mean, I suppose play hard is not really this, but I mean, I'm really into documentaries, particularly not just about music, but about, for instance, I watched the Conor McGregor documentary last weekend, and that was really inspirational to me. I am a fan, but as well as that, I think his story in terms of the way it unfolded and the level of focus that was there was incredible. So I'm really big on like true stories, whether it's autobiographies or and a lot of the time it does come back to music, but not always. It could be film. I like a lot of dark comedy and a lot of thrillers and things like that. HBO, I mean, just anything HBO usually is. I've been that way since I was kind of in my teens when I discovered 6 Feet Under and The Sopranos, and I don't tend to watch a lot of just regular commercial cable TV. I mean, enjoy generic comedies as much as the next person in small doses, but I do like darker subject matter in my TV, so that's why I got a HBO, and a lot of kind of indie films and stuff like that. What else do I? Food all the way. Whether it's like, I'm interested in nutrition in general and the whole science behind it, but also just actually food and eating and going to restaurants and as I get a little bit older as well, I think clubs are being replaced with restaurants, and that's more where the pleasure is coming from. And having a smaller group of friends that are on a sort of level with you and are in a similar place to you and going through similar things, and as opposed to big groups. So I guess it's just part of the process. And travel. A couple of my friends actually live in Barcelona, so I like to get over there sometimes. And that for me is a good way of getting away from everything. And then I work as well. So at the moment I work selling houses. Okay. So property has been it's just part-time. I do it like 2-3 days a week. So property has always been a big passion. I would say, aside from music, as much as I loved journalism and as much as I loved writing, and property would have been kind of the number 2 interest growing up. So quite obsessed with architecture and property styles and interiors and all of that sort of thing. And just generally now, the passion is actually the selling aspect as much as anything else, and meeting people. It all comes back down to jobs where I can meet people fulfill me a lot more. I find it really, really difficult to integrate in an office situation where you're Monday to Friday 9 to 5. Hence why I've worked in nightlife. I've worked in jobs that are not well paid just because they're more comfortable and more suitable for my personality, I guess. It's kind of, I find it difficult to do anything for longer than 9 months. I find usually I need a change up after a while, unless it's creative. If it's creative, then it keeps that fire ignited. But if it's something that you can learn and then you can go on autopilot, that's not going to work for me.
No, you become numb. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not when I started my career, obviously I was I had to go to the office, and we were in cubicles and things. I like the social aspect of it, but the millennials, I thank the millennials because they have really changed the way corporate America thinks. They changed the culture. I've worked from home now for 13 years, and I travel. Yeah, I travel internationally and domestically. And I like it. I mean, I like it. I play hard, and I work hard. But no, interesting. So what types of books do you like to read, or what have you read?
Actually, just this week I read the George Michael biography.
Nice.
It wasn't an autobiography. It was just a biography.
Sure.
But I always find those are the better ones because you get the juice that you don't necessarily get with an autobiography.
Yep.
Where it's edited within an inch of its life and there's 15 ghostwriters. So I really enjoyed that because I would have missed the Wham era.
Yeah.
Was before I was born, so I got to, as much as I knew a lot about his 90s career and his career the last 20 years, I guess, I didn't know about, I had heard the Wham songs obviously, but I didn't know the story and how, again, like I was saying about McGregor earlier, he had this sort of laser focus that I think is comparable to, and I watched that Katy Perry documentary a few weeks ago, more just out of absolute curiosity because I'd heard stories about her record deals that she'd had in the early days and how, she was basically like having her car repossessed and she was down to her last kind of paycheck and, I find those stories really inspiring. So yeah, the George Michael biographies, as I said, I love stuff like that. And it's been a while since I've kind of got my teeth into fiction. I like Michael Cunningham and he wrote The Hours and other books that would be of that style as well. I guess usually American writers actually, and I like also books that are based in the media environment. So I'm quite interested in the like, how do I describe the magazine sort of lifestyle, and so everything that goes on behind the scenes. Because I've been in that situation here in Ireland on a smaller scale. Really interested in how that works, at the top, because I think it's just the craziest environment, and like that would interest me more than politics or more than
absolutely.
corporate or anything like that. I'm pretty removed from that kind of thing. I'm not. I suppose I'm a lot more lighthearted than that. I would have a certain political awareness, but not. It's not something I would really focus on that much.
Yeah, it's not your day to day. There are some people that they want to know every movement in the White House. Yeah,
and I kind of consciously removed myself from a lot of that as well with the news. So I wouldn't even watch the Irish news, or I would see it maybe twice in a week.
Well, I agree.
I don't listen to the radio for the most part. I've started to listen to a lot of random internet radio stations and curated Spotify playlists that suit my taste. But why would I listen to the same 15 songs from the same 3 record labels every day of the week? I've started to make playlists myself as well, and I was just test driving them at the gym this week and making changes and listening to other people's Spotify playlists, which is great. It's a really fun way of sharing new music with your friends and your followers as well.
I totally agree.
It's so much fun, but I found this French radio station I won't name, but I found so much music on there in the last 3-4 months that I've actually discovered new bands that are really important to me now. Like there's a band called Swimming Tapes that came out of the UK, and they again have that. If you like Morrissey, I think you'll definitely like them. They have that really
Swimming Tapes. Okay.
Yeah, it's very like kind of Californian sort of like dream pop, I think is the term.
Yeah, I've got a couple bands.
A bit hazy and a little bit sort of it's kind of a wall of sound, I think is the way to describe it.
Okay.
And another band called Few Bits I discovered on the same station. Absolutely fantastic. Like you won't hear these guys on the radio.
Well,
I don't know how they sustain themselves. I guess it's I actually discovered them, I think, initially in a film that I was watching, some independent film, and I think that's the real way for artists like myself to develop small fan bases, because from the time I've been watching really basic American TV shows years back, like the OC or One Tree Hill or those kind of programs, and you hear Death Cab for Cutie or Nada Surf or or whoever, Arcade Fire I found in 6 Feet Under, and I've been a lifelong obsessive fan. I've seen them live countless times. I've seen solo shows and the small shows, and I'm here for all of it, but I would never now find acts that I like to that extreme. that have been spoon fed to me. I think there's something special about finding an act that you love in a way like that, you know?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because when I'm watching, I forget the name of the show. I believe it was either Showtime or HBO. It had Don Cheadle in it. He was a salesperson, and he had three other people with him. It was a couple years ago, but I started Shazamming the music.
That's at time, yeah.
At the end of the movie, you know, and I found, you know, the XX, Elise Melanand. I mean, I've gotten so many different artists from that, and then you throw that in Spotify, then you get like artists, right? So then I go on Twitter and I look for them, and then I reach out to them. There's a band I'm interviewing called Cult with No Name. I don't know if you've heard them. They are. Okay, I haven't heard. If you're familiar with like OMD, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, from the 80s. I can't remember the name of the band, but they're excellent. They actually have a bunch of music on YouTube, but I'm interviewing them in a couple weeks. And they actually reached out to me. Then I started doing my research. I was like, man, I've heard these guys before, you know. They're actually pretty big, but that's where I find my music. And to your point, I don't listen to, you know what I listen to on the radio? I listen to classical music, and I listen to jazz.
Right.
I don't listen to pop, top 40. Like you said, I don't want to hear the same song 10 times in an hour. Because sometimes, coming home from the airport, I'll hear the same song twice in an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's baffling to me.
It's disgusting.
Space. I get it. I get that it's a case of we've three major labels, and they're all service their own version of a certain thing. I completely understand it, and I don't think that it's ever really, well, not never, but it's always going to be a version of that, in the sense that even with the big Spotify playlists or the big Apple Music playlists, or that's becoming the new payola and the new version of the same 15 songs being played on radio in the era, because ultimately, of course, the labels are going to adjust and see that Spotify is now where the young listeners are, as opposed to maybe regular FM radio. So the internet doesn't suddenly make it easier for people like me to be heard by the masses, but I think you can develop a cult following that's enough, maybe over a certain period of time. That's enough to, if you can find the type of people, like what you said about older, if you can find the type of people that are here for that type of sound, and they want more of it, then you can deliver and cater to them, directly with no middleman, and that's sustainable. And then you can go out and, even I was looking at SoundCloud and seeing, so where am I popular? Where are the tracks more popular? And seeing, let's say it's Germany, let's say it's California or Nashville, or and then you can obviously make decisions based on that in terms of where you're going to advertise or where you're going to do a show in the future. Like, that's where technology really helps us out as independent artists.
Well, I think, first of all, I read, the reason I came back is I had a station back in 2006 on 365, but they went defunct. And I bounced back a couple years ago with this. And the reason I did is because I read in Forbes magazine that, first of all, Pandora was losing listeners. They were hemorrhaging because of Spotify. Yeah. But Spotify, if you like a certain artist or a certain playlist, and then they start to play like artists, they do the same thing. They play the same artist over and over again. They do, because I've listened to them for hours out back while I'm grilling or something, and I'm like, I just heard that song like 2 hours ago. Forbes said that internet radio is the next big thing because of the global reach and the exposure to numerous artists. And there have been studies done. People like to hear different artists. They like different sounds. 5 artists do not define a population. You can't you can't
represent that same thing, and then for 6 weeks to hear that same single, or 8 weeks, dragged out more and more now, and I'm paying attention to that, whereby a single is now taking maybe 3 months to actually lift off, and then so it hangs around for a while where you don't have that impact. And I know it's always been different in the States and in the UK and in Ireland, the way the charts would work or how long in advance you would service a single. So that was something I had to think about coming back. Was I going to just drop a single onto iTunes and Spotify overnight and then start talking about it? But actually I went the opposite way, and I announced the single in February. I announced that I was doing this, first of all, in a very vague way on Instagram. But I sort of avoided really going into any detail because I didn't want to disappoint, and I didn't want to, if I had to cancel or postpone, and I've been in that situation before, and then you look unprofessional and you look like you don't really know what you're doing. So I thought I'm going to do everything behind the scenes. But to get to the point, I announced the single and I went straight to radio and let it build at radio for maybe 6 weeks. Because I'm not in a position to actually just like somebody like Coldplay or like Beyonce to just do a surprise record. The surprise would be that nobody would be downloading because nobody would know it was out. You have to, as a new or independent or up and coming, whatever you want to call it, under the radar artist, you have to promotion is more important almost than the product. Is massively important, don't get me wrong, but the promotion is equally important, because there's a lot of product out there that's going to be as good and better than yours. But if you can kind of take I think like Madonna approach and sort of say, she might not have the best voice or the best skills or the best songwriting, but she manages to sort of take all of those ideas, create a good product, and then take it to the next level with visuals and with consistency and with being omnipresent, not right now, but when there's a campaign, using every resource possible to be, on people's minds.
Well, it's high visibility and it's marketing, and that's really what it boils down to. But with the indie artists, it's like you have control, but it's up to you to make it happen, because you don't have the budget. So you have to be strategic in how you market your product. And what I'm starting to see now, there's only so many different ways that you can market online. You're in a sea of artists, right? And so you've got to find a way to get to shore somehow. You have to, and the only way to do that is you have to align yourselves with people like me and other people that are promoting that don't have an ulterior motive. Because what I tell my artists is,
the idea was, how do I fuse all these sounds together, and then how do you describe it? Because the issue you have as well is, obviously radio has categories, and like you were saying earlier, you've now got this new heavy indie alternative, but you go to a country station, and if there's weird electronic undertones to the song, they're going to say, well, it's not country enough, really. And then you go to an electronic station and they say, what's that country guitar like? You're kind of in no man's land. So, but you don't want to go into the studio and think, I'm going to cut a record that's specifically this genre, because then you're not making what's actually kind of, true to your art, I suppose, or your vision. But to kind of finalize on this, for me, when I made the record, I definitely had the 80s in mind, hence the synths. And I don't know what band you mentioned earlier, whether it was Simple Minds or it was somebody else, but Pet Shop Boys for sure.
Pet Shop Boys, Tears for Fears,
Tears for Fears, and even Tears for Fears, I've been thinking about integrating a cover of one of their tracks into my set, because I think it does represent. I think it does represent the feel. There's kind of an ethereal quality and a bittersweetness about it. Like it could be a sad song, but there's definitely a euphoric feeling about hearing it as well. Like the chorus of "You Found Me" kind of jumps out at you.
I was going to mention that at 101. 101 at 1 minute, 1 second, the climax and the chorus of "You Found Me." Yep. It was excellent.
It just attacks you a little bit. And the funny thing about that is nearly all the reviews that have come in, and I've been really fortunate with the reviews, have been very positive. But most of them compliment the chorus beyond anything else, which is absolutely fine. But it's also kind of hilarious to me because the chorus was written in literally a couple of seconds. I went into the vocal booth and I had the verses laid down, and the bridge that you heard that you said was like older vocals.
Yeah.
That was kind of the chorus. So it was quite a minimal chorus. It wasn't a very obvious chorus. It was a bit more like older in the sense that the older chorus doesn't really. It's not. There's no dramatic. Here's the chorus signpost. But Stuart and Steve both felt like, and they co-produced this track. They both felt as if it needed a chorus that was bigger and more monumental. And so I said, I don't want it to be, like something ripped out of the script record, or
Sure.
I don't want it to go into boy band territory or for it to be too obvious, because the verses had that subtlety about them. So I said, you know what, I was at the Coldplay concert last summer, and what I loved about most of their songs, watching the audience respond, was the choruses had this kind of energy about them that they just went off so hard.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have that kind of impact. I thought, right, if you really think we should go with this and do a very obvious chorus, let me have my little Coldplay kind of homage moment, because I'm a fan, and I thought, let's integrate that. So I went in and didn't think it would work, because vocally I've never done anything like that with that yeah line that runs into the Eufemi line. I've never had a long soaring note like that, or even at that pitch, and I thought, I'm not really sure if it's going to work. And I went in and I did it, and they said, I thought no, but when I came back out, they said, that's the one, that's exactly what we were talking about. And so I thought, wow, I've spent all this time writing these verses and putting a lot of thought into it, and then you run in and do one random line that you think, what would my song sound like if it was a Coldplay song? And they loved it. Excellent.
Now, you have, I'm not going to say you have a lot of potential. You know you have potential. You know you have a lot of potential. But I think that...
It doesn't hurt to hear.
But I think that you could be just as good as Coldplay, if you keep writing the way you're writing, and you sing how you sang in Older, and you add that chorus, and maybe you add some of the ethereal sounds, nothing too heavy, but something light. You'd nail it, because you've got the vocals, and you have the look. You've got the full package, and it's like, and I don't think. So what if you do a little country? Who cares? Because you know what? You get a lot more exposure when you're multi-genre, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you that people have submitted. I'm sorry?
There's multiple audiences. So
exactly.
I know a lot of people who just thought straight out they don't like country, and then they heard the track and they said, well, actually, it's not really country. I can hear the guitars are kind of country influenced. And actually, the second single is more country, but it's also a little bit more, I don't want to say folk, but it's quite retro. It moves away from those 80s influences, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a momentary thing. I'm taking kind of a course here whereby, like, the songs will all tie together that are released this year, but they definitely have very distinctive flavors by themselves as well. They're not, the second and third singles are not going to be diluted versions of Eufemi. These are definitely, I would say the couple of people that have heard the second single, many of them believe that it is the more commercial track of the two, and I think Eufemi is very commercial.
Well, I think your music is great. You've got crisp, clean vocals, and you've got great engineering behind you, and I look forward to hearing more. But please send me Older so I can get that playing. You'd be surprised. I get artists that send me, they'll send me 12, 13 songs, and they're like, well, we're an alternative indie rock band. Well, they fit. I've got guys, one band that meets the electronic and the country.
Yeah.
And the alternative rock. It's amazing, because I'll listen and I have to flag it. Well, wait a minute, I need to put that here. So you keep doing what you're doing, and because I've got to wrap this up. Time flies when you do these interviews. But before we go, Tell everyone who you are again and where they can find your music and what you have coming up next for your career,
perfect.
your music career.
Yeah. Ready to go?
Yep, go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Robert O'Connor, and I'm very happy to talk to you today about my single You Found Me and my musical comeback after 5 years away from the scene. I'm also going to be releasing another single called No Second Chances later this summer, and I can't wait for you to hear it.
Excellent. Where can we find your music?
You can find my music on all the usual outlets, so everywhere from Spotify to Apple Music to Tidal, YouTube, SoundCloud. If you want to download a full package in WAV format, you can go to Bandcamp. Most of my social media is I am Robert O'Connor, or on Twitter it's just Robert O'Connor.
Outstanding. All right, Robert, thank you so much for taking the time. We got a good solid 44 minutes in. I'll edit this and I'll get this up. It'll be on the website also, and obviously YouTube. Thanks again. What time is it there right now?
It is 9 o'clock in the evening here now.
Okay, well listen, have a good night. Have a great week coming up. And
you too. So much for all your support. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Just, when you get new music, just send it my way and I'll put it on air. Okay?
I will, absolutely. Thanks for everything, all right?
All right, take care. Have a good night. Thanks again.
You too.
All right,
Bye-bye.